Hello and welcome to Ag PhD. I'm Brian Hefty.
And I'm Darren Hefty. Thanks for joining us. You know, there's so many things going on the farm in the fall. One of the things that you may forget about sometimes is shelter belt management. We'll talk about how to wipe out those weeds for good in your shelter belts.
Well, one of the most important things you can do each fall is some soil sampling. But you know what? If you're going to soil sample, you got to know how to pull a proper sample. We're going to talk about good soil sampling technique today.
We have a very problematic weed of the week, but our Farm Basics is up next.
Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
During our Farm Basics time today, we're going to talk about eliminating the green bridge.
Well, when you think about a bridge, what that means is it's a transition point from one to another. And when we're looking at a green bridge, we're talking about everything that's living out in the field, so all the plants out in a field between when we took one crop off and when we're putting the next crop on. Now, normally if you just say, well, I'm harvesting soybeans in the fall and I'm going to plant corn next spring, in the upper Midwest, well, we've got winter in there and we've got frost and everything's going to be dead out in the field. We don't have much issue with green bridge in that type of situation. But when we're looking at harvesting a spring crop like spring wheat, for example, or even winter wheat, and then we try to plant winter wheat again, maybe a month or two later, well, in the middle of the summer, there's nothing to kill off those weeds except you. And so we're very interested in controlling all the vegetation in that field because little things like mites, for example, or insects, can live in that plant material that's out in the field and then transition into the next crop.
Well, it's not just insects or mites. It could be diseases. It could be other weeds. I mean, we want to have everything dead for 1 to 2 weeks prior to planting the next crop. And I don't care if it's a cover crop, if it's some other crop, if it's weeds, whatever it is. We just want to have that ground black or at least everything dead for 1 to 2 weeks prior to seeding the fall crop. And the big reason, like we're talking about here, is to try to prevent anything from moving from the last crop or from whatever was out there into the next crop.
Well, when you think about it, let's just take each one of these things individually. Okay, so let's look at weeds. Let's say you have a very difficult to control weed like cheatgrass, for example, and if you've got cheatgrass that's out and growing in a field, now you're going to plant winter wheat into that field. How are you going to control the cheatgrass in winter wheat? Well, there aren't very many options, and the timing is just absolutely critical, and if one of those weed control herbicides doesn't work, now you are really in trouble. So using a burn down where you can spray a non-selective herbicide that's going to control everything green out in the field, that's a real benefit for a farmer. And now we can stop that first flush at least of cheatgrass, maybe the only flush, who knows, from getting into that next crop. That's very important for the farmer to get a good stand establishment going into the winter.
When it comes to diseases, it's kind of the same thing. We don't want the last crop to have some disease that ends up going into this next crop. Now, it can certainly still happen. Just having the green bridge eliminated for 1 to 2 weeks, there can still be a transfer of disease from one crop to the next crop, but at least it's a little bit less likely. And so then it means that your seed treatment doesn't have to do as much work. Your early fungicide treatment doesn't have to do as much work in your next crop. We have varieties out there that are somewhat disease tolerant for many different diseases, but there's nothing that's 100% disease tolerant for every single disease out there. So just to be on the safe side, we like eliminating that green bridge just because we have a little less disease issue going into the next crop.
Well, and the other thing, insects, mites, these kinds of things. You say, well, there's insecticides and miticides that can be used to try and control some of these things. For the most part, that's accurate. You know, a lot of the problem insects we can control with the spray application, but why do we need to do that? If we take away their food source out in the field, which is plants that they're going to be feeding on, all of a sudden the bugs are either going to leave or they're going to die. And that allows us to start the next crop off without having insect feeding and mites on the crop right off the bat.
Well, once again, our Farm Basics topic today was the green bridge and how important it is to make sure we've eliminated the green bridge going into the next crop.
Now, one of those things that could be living out in those fields is our weed of the week. We'll show you how to stop this tough weed coming up later in the show.
Regalia RX biofungicide activates a plant's natural defense system, limiting the effects of disease and improving overall plant health. Regalia RX complements your fungicide program to optimize yield and strengthen return on investment. Ask your retailer for Regalia RX today.
Take a look inside any rotary combine, and you'll find single rotor technology. Technology Case IH introduced over 35 years ago with the axial flow combine. But unless it gives you more bells and whistles with fewer belts and chains, more power using less fuel, it's not an axial flow. Because while the heart of every rotary combine beats red, only Case IH gives you the power to do more.
Looking to maximize yield? Quick Roots from Monsanto Bioag is a microbial seed inoculant that allows the plant root to explore a greater volume of soil, the key to higher yields. Quick Roots continues to generate yield response on corn, soybeans, wheat, and more, and is applied to the seed so the live microorganisms go right to work enhancing seedling vigor, increasing the uptake of certain nutrients including NPK, and expanding root volume. Maximize yield on your farm this season. Get Quick Roots today.
This year's projected U.S. soybean yield will lose over $500 million per point in shrink. Eliminate shrink in your bin. Store grain without lowering moisture content with the AgriDrive Bullseye Temperature and Moisture Controller. The Bullseye monitors air temperature and relative humidity, allowing your fans to utilize the weather's natural condition to maintain your grain at market moisture. Fan runtimes drastically decrease along with the cost of over-drying. Eliminate shrink today. Call now.
Working in agriculture over the past 3 decades, I saw a need for an accurate way to apply dry product to seed. That's where our Changing Times applicators come in. The CT applicator brush sifts powder into small particles, resulting in proper distribution. Quantities can be adjusted by the speed of the brush rotation. This allows for even and accurate distribution of product. Application at the time of planting can be used with any seed delivery system and saves farmers time, labor, and money. Remember, CT applicators for the Changing Times.
Your time is valuable. That's why you need a Hagie STS application system. Hagie STS products are designed for precision and efficiency, allowing you to make applications all season long with just one machine. Contact your Hagie rep today.
Over the last couple of years, commodity prices have come down well off their highs, and so every farmer out there is concerned about how do I still make money in the farm. Boy, it's tough with our fertilizer prices and seed prices and our land cost. How am I going to make this happen? Well, one of the biggest expenses, or as we like to call them, investments on the farm, is fertilizer. But let's face it, how much do you really know about fertilizer? Do you know for sure that you're putting on exactly the right amount on every acre of your farm? Well, in order to figure this out, you've got to have data. So what we really encourage you to do is get some good soil sampling done this fall. You can do it very, very easily yourself with this tool right here called a soil probe. So today we want to talk just a little about soil sampling technique, how you can make this happen yourself on your farm.
So when you think about soil sampling, many farmers have relied on other people to take samples for them. This is a simple job. So using technology and using GPS, you can easily find points in the field that you want to go to. But let's face it, many of us know our fields fairly well. Hey, here's the area that always produces very well for me. Here's the area that doesn't produce as well for me. Or here's the hilltop, here's the side hill, and here's the valley. And I've got 3 different soil types out in the field. It doesn't really matter to me how you set up your field for sampling. Just get a good representative sample from each different type of area that you're going to manage differently. I just had a conversation with the farmer this weekend, and he said, all right, I'm going to take soil samples for the first time. Should I do grid sampling? Should I do zone sampling? How many samples do I need to pull in a 160-acre field? And I said, well, how many different soil types have you got out there? And he said, boy, I've got like 7 different soil types across that 1/4 section of ground. And I said, how about topography? Do you have many hills and valleys? He goes, oh yeah. And some of them have had some erosion on them, and some of the valleys have been washed out over the years before we went no-till. And I said, you know, it looks to me like you need to start with grid soil sampling just because there's a lot of variance in the field. I'd probably pull a sample every 5 acres and start there, and then you can look at what kind of variance there is out in the field based on those soil samples to adjust your program going forward.
I will tell you though, on our farm where we do have a lot of up and down, different soil types, everything else, we're going to smaller grids, 2.5 acre grids, or we're setting up our own zones that may be based on soil type or based on the yield map. But the whole thing is, you want to get this set up right now. This is the reason why we're talking about this today. If you're a corn and soybean farmer, chances are are your corn and soybeans are not off the field yet. So now's the time to do it while you have a chance. Once you get started with harvest, things get busy. And the whole thing is you got to get yourself set up so you're all ready to go. So here's what we suggest. Number one, get a soil probe. They're relatively inexpensive. They do cost about $100, and you say, oh my goodness, $100 for that little tool? Well, it's all stainless steel, so it's going to last forever. That's the reason why. The next thing is set up your grid points. So you can download the free Ag PhD soil test app, but go to your computer and just go to the website agphdsoiltest.com. So if you do that, then you can set up your fields for free. It doesn't cost you anything. And then you're all ready to go this fall. You get your grid points set. So then using your smartphone in the fall, you can go right to your grid points and you can very quickly pull your soil samples.
All right, so let's talk about pulling that sample. So you've got the probe that Brian was talking about. What we'd really like to pull is 6-inch soil cores going across your field. Now in some areas of the country, they may say, well, we always do 8-inch samples or we always do 12-inch samples. Let's face it, if you're raising corn and soybeans, for example, much of that root system is going to be in the top 6 inches of soil. Most of your fertility in the field is going to be in that top 6 inches of soil. 6 inches is a good place to start. So when we're pulling those samples, it's important that you're going to pull every core at 6 inches. So many times on the soil probe, we'll see farmers either put a piece of tape or draw a line with a permanent marker, or possibly even just make a mark with a grinder or something right into the probe where this is how far we go down.
And that's the best way to do it. That's what we have on all the soil probes we've ever gotten. We just take the grinder, it just takes a minute, and we just make our 6-inch mark.
Then each time you get to a spot in the field you want to sample, we would recommend taking 8 to 10 cores. And then you put all that into one bucket, you mix it up, and then you put a chunk of that into a soil sample bag.
So the way that you're going to do this real simply is go out with your four-wheeler or your pickup and then just walk around the four-wheeler or pickup and pull the 8 to 10 cores. Okay, one of the most important things you need to know is this soil probe needs to go straight up and down every single time and exactly to that 6-inch mark. So as long as you're going straight up and down every single time, you're going to do just as good as the very best soil sampler in the whole country. So don't be thinking that, oh wow, this is too tough a job. This is a super simple job that any kid can do. You can easily handle this. Anybody on your farm can handle this. So all you want to do is just go out to those grid points, take your probe, go straight up and down, pull 8 to 10 cores, dump them in the sample bag, scan it, send it in.
All right, so you think about what the cost is going to be for this whole thing. If you're pulling the samples yourself, you eliminate whatever costs there may be there. Perhaps you're not able to. Maybe you're not physically able to get out there and do it. You can hire somebody to do sampling. Generally, it costs a couple bucks an acre. Then you look at what it costs to send those samples in. We like to do a complete soil analysis where we see not only NP and K, but we also see all the secondary and micronutrients as well, along with base saturation, cation exchange capacity, soil organic matter. There's a number of factors that we're going to use and talk about through the fall and winter when it comes to getting your soil program in line, getting your fertility program built. So a complete soil analysis costs about $25 to $30. And if you're doing 5-acre grids, for example, it's going to cost just a little over $5 an acre to do the sampling and get all the information you need. Now you may say, wow, I farm 1,000 acres. That's $5,000 for my whole farm. Yeah, it is. But what are you going to spend on fertilizer? You're probably going to spend $100,000, $200,000, who knows, maybe more, depending on what crop you're raising. For a small investment, you can find out exactly how to best invest those fertility dollars on your farm.
Yeah, and the big thing is a lot of people aren't sampling every year. Now for us on our farm, if I'm going to make a dramatic change, if it's newer ground and we say, oh wow, I got to make a lot of changes here, I might sample every year for the first 3 or 4 years. But after that, it might be every other year, it might be every 3rd year, possibly even every 4th year. So you start dividing this out and you say, well, yeah, it's really not that much money per year that I'm going to invest. But the big thing here is we just want to stress to you, this is a job you can absolutely do. And we talk about $100 an hour jobs all the time. Even the cheapest soil sampler out there, they're typically charging $1 an acre. If you can do 1,000 acres in a day, a 10-hour day, that's a job that pays you $100 an hour. So maybe you don't want to do it, but I'll bet you your kid wants to do it, or your grandkid, or somebody that you know would love to make $100 an hour.
I like those jobs that pay $100 an hour or more. One of those jobs may just be controlling our weed of the week. Can you identify this week's weed?
We know that the future is liquid. That's how Agriculture Liquid Fertilizer creates the highest quality products on the market. Because we're committed to finding the best raw materials at the best price possible and getting them from us to you in the most sustainable, responsible ways possible. Agriculture Liquid Fertilizers, helping you grow the future.
A farmer's attention to detail is what makes the difference. You take the time for service management because you know how vital it is to your operation. You service your field like everything else because soil sampling makes all the difference and gets the results you want. Download the app Soil Test Pro and start grid sampling today. Keep your farm growing strong. The more you test, the more you know.
With the success of the Case IH Tiger Quad Track and Magnum Road Track tractors, it's no secret why Case IH is the leader of the track. So it wasn't surprising when the competition started imitating us. But only Case IH offers a 5-axle design to give you a smoother ride, more power to the ground, with less berming and compaction. Still, we're flattered. In fact, if we weren't already red, we'd be blushing.
How will you secure your farm for the future? The Quasar Chopping Cornhead from Capello USA will help. Our design is focused on efficiency, longevity, and reducing harvest loss, making the Quasar the corn harvest solution to bring your farm forward. With hundreds of units ready for immediate delivery, secure your farm's future today. Do it for your farm. Do it for them. Order now. Capello USA. Italian craftsmanship, American grit.
What if instead of running test plots on 10 acres, you could test on 10,000? With Farmers Business Network, the world becomes your plot trial. FBN is the independent farmer-to-farmer agronomic network. FBN connects real data from tens of thousands of fields and provides you trusted analysis on hundreds of seeds, practices, and field performance to maximize your profits. Find out how your field seeds and practices compare today by joining the FBN community at farmersbusinessnetwork.com. Just $500 per year for unlimited acres.
Your focus on the farm is most likely your crops and your income, but chances are, if you're a farmer, you've got a shelter belt around your place or maybe around several of your locations. And the big thing here that we try talking to people about all the time is, look, we want to have great weed control, not just in our fields, but everywhere. We want to make sure that everything we're doing looks good. It's just important for us in rural America to make sure that we're putting out a good face in front of all the non-farmers out there so they understand, hey, we're managing everything, not just our crops, but all our acreages as well. So we wanted to talk a little about shelter belt management and just some simple things you can do in the fall that don't take a lot of time, but you got to get them done so you have a great shelter belt going forward for the next many years.
Oh, you have to remember, those shelter belts are really important. You see them around many farm places because they're going to block that wind out in the winter. They're going to help keep your yard a little bit cleaner from snow and those kind of things, and reduce your heating bill in the winter. So it's important to have that protection around your farm place when you're living out in the country. Now, the thing that I look at is I do want to keep my fields clean. I don't want to have weeds and problems out in my fields, but a lot of those problems start in shelter belts because we're doing a nice job out in the field, but hey, if we let a few weeds go in the tree belt, all of a sudden that spreads out into the field. Or if we have the wrong weeds growing in the tree belt, now we end up with bugs getting out into the field.
So what we want you to do is spray in the fall. Once the leaves start dropping off your trees, you can go out there with 2,4-D relatively safely. And yes, 2,4-D is the product we're typically talking about, but if you want to kill everything, then we'd probably be looking at Roundup. If you're going to spray Roundup, we want you to do that before the first hard killing frost. Okay? Otherwise, 2,4-D is a real good product for killing most of the broadleaves out there. So that's in terms of weed control. Bugs, there are lots of bugs that do get hosted in these weeds, like buckthorn hosts soybean aphids, for example. So get all your weeds under control. That's the first step. Then we want to look at fertility.
All right, when it comes to fertility, typically trees don't need a whole lot of fertilizer put on them unless you've got an orchard or something that's producing a lot of fruit or nuts, for example. But the fertility for the grass to make sure that you have good grass growth so you can choke out weeds. I hear so many farmers say, I don't want to put fertilizer out in the grass because then I'll have to mow it more often. That's the wrong way to look at it. We need to put enough fertility out there that we get thick grass growth. Now all of a sudden we choke out weeds like dandelions and others that are going to be coming when we have sporadic grass growth.
Okay, so just like in your field, we would suggest you do a soil test and then talk to an arborist. Talk to someone who knows something about trees in your area and your tree species we're talking about here. But the big thing is we're usually looking for high levels of potassium. We'd like to see 7 to 8% base saturation K. You'll get a bigger tree faster, and that's really important. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is water your trees. They need water going into the winter. They've got to get themselves established. So you may have to haul some water out to trees. Darren and I used to have to do that when we were kids. But hey, you do these things, you work on maybe picking up some sticks, pruning the trees a little bit, and you can have a really nice shelter belt going into next year.
One weed that you don't want to get in your shelter belts is our Weed of the Week. We'll show you how to stop this tough weed coming up next.
The Weed of the Week is sponsored by the Enlist Weed Control System from Dow AgroSciences, a new herbicide and trait system that will build on glyphosate.
Farming isn't just in the land, it's in you. Take control of weeds like never before. Enlist builds on the Roundup Ready system, combining proven control of a new 2,4-D and glyphosate in Enlist Duo herbicide. Protect what matters without changing the way you farm. Talk to your seed or crop protection supplier today.
Our Weed of the Week is quackgrass.
This is probably the weed I get more questions about in yards, even so, than dandelions. Guys say, all right, I can control the dandelion, I just have to get out there and spray them, but I've got this grass. It's got a wider leaf. It's a little lighter green than the rest of my lawn, and at the base of the leaf, it's got these little hook things that hook around the stem, and I say, well, that's easy. That's quackgrass, and people say, awesome. Well, how do I control quackgrass? And I say, Roundup, a high rate of Roundup. And then I get a puzzled look on most faces of, well, won't that kill the rest of my grass too? And the answer is yes, it will. But other than that, there's really no weed control method for quackgrass in yards.
Yep, that's the problem. It's a perennial grass. It's got tremendous root system, including rhizomes. So if you're going to get this grass under control, that's about all you can do is kill everything and start over again. Now the key is, once you've started over again, we want to keep quackgrass out. And it's the same thing in your crop ground too. The better crop you raise, whether it's grass or corn or soybeans, any crop, the less chance you'll have quackgrass in the future.
Yes, but if you start over, you can't start over and just say, well, I'm going to till everything under. That does not work for quackgrass. Quackgrass has rhizomes that run below the ground, and when you do tillage, you chop those up, and what happens is you end up with even more quackgrass coming. So it's important to do a Roundup burn down if you want to wipe out quackgrass for good. Now, where I see it more commonly in fields is in alfalfa stands. And once you've got quackgrass going in alfalfa, it's time to take the stand out. Yes, you can go with high rates of things like clethodim, but you're just going to burn the top growth off. You're not going to control that root system, and it is going to come back.
Yep, but that's the good thing with Roundup Ready alfalfa. At least you can take quackgrass out of that type of alfalfa.
Okay, in corn, soybeans, wheat, just about any other crop, the only thing you can do is use Roundup on it that's going to completely kill it. You can use a lot of the other grass control products. I know Brian says sometimes a very high rate of Treflan that we would use pre-emerge in soybeans, for example, can do an okay job suppressing it, but suppression is about the best you're going to do with any of the grass herbicides. Roundup's what you need to take it out.
Well, that's it for our Weed of the Week, quackgrass, but stay tuned. Iron Talk is coming up next.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
The AFS Connect Farm Management System from Case IH connects you, and only you, to the information you need most from your equipment, from anywhere, at any time. AFS Connect, only from Case IH.
No matter how much technology you have in your combine, you've got to get out and physically check for harvest loss. We'll discuss the different types of loss and a handy app you can use to calculate loss in today's Iron Talk. There are three main types of loss at harvest time. Looking behind the combine shows you total loss, but you need to figure out where that loss is coming from. Check unharvested acres to see what's already on the ground. If you pull in with your combine, then back up a little bit, you can figure out the loss at the combine head. If If you subtract those two losses from the total, that will give you what's being lost inside the combine. The important thing is to try to calculate loss both in bushels and net dollars. Try the Ag PhD Harvest Loss app to run these quick numbers. Select your crop, enter the seeds per square foot in the crop price, and you'll determine your bushel and dollar loss. In corn, for example, it takes just 2 corn kernels per square foot to lose a bushel per acre. So monitor harvest loss this year very closely. That's all for today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show.
What if instead of running test plots on 10 acres, you could test on 10,000? With Farmers Business Network, the world becomes your plot trial. FBN is the independent farmer-to-farmer agronomic network. FBN connects real data from tens of thousands of fields and provides you trusted analysis on hundreds of seeds, practices, and field performance to maximize your profits. Find out how your field seeds and practices compare today by joining the FBN community at farmersbusinessnetwork.com. Just $500 per year for unlimited acres.
For lower cost, higher production, Mandaco Agri leads with versatility unmatched. Twister is the vertical tillage unit for no-till as well as conventional tillage. Twister's ease of maintenance is forgiving and rocks and has contour conformity equaling 0 downtime. Our hydraulically adjusted coulter angles make residue management easier, less costly. Spring or fall, the Mandaco Twister vertical tillage unit is the new leader. See your Mandaco Agri dealer. Visit northcountrymarketing.biz or call.
Dirty work pays. That is if your dirty work includes a Soil Max Gold Digger tile plow. Soil Max tile plows feature zero deflection technology. With the only tile plow factory paired with Ag Leader's IntelliSlope control system, you eliminate the need for grade calculations and lasers. So make your next investment in a Soil Max Gold Digger. Better yield, longer planting and harvest windows, better water management is all yours with Soil Max. Visit soilmax.com.
Wake up, breakfast is served. Your roots crave pea. Most of your applied pea gets tied up in the soil, a natural phenomenon known as phosphorus fixation. Fix the problem with Avail Phosphorus Fertilizer Enhancer. Avail makes more pea available to your roots, here, here, and here. Increasing pea availability can lead to increased pea uptake in the plant. That's more pea, and more pea. More phosphorus for your crop can mean more results in your bin. An average of 9.6 bushels per acre of corn. Breakfast is served. Supercharge your pea with Avail.
We've been dealing with AgriLiquid a little over 7 years. I was skeptical, to be honest, but I watched the results from several clients. Those results were increased production and reduction in input cost. With AgriLiquid, we've saw an increase in the size of the initial root mass. For ranchers, that means forage production a lot quicker. AgriLiquid works. The bottom line is profitability.
With the success of the Case IH Tiger Quad Track and Magnum Road Track tractors, it's no secret why Case IH is the leader of the track. So it wasn't surprising when the competition started imitating us. But only Case IH offers a 5-axle design to give you a smoother ride, more power to the ground, with less berming and compaction. Still, we're flattered. In fact, if we weren't already red, we'd be blushing.
I've been involved in developing new technologies in agriculture for over 3 decades. The changing times demanded that we develop new and better equipment. Dry powder applications on seed can only be highly successful if they can be easily, effectively, and accurately applied to the target. That's where our company, Changing Times and CT Applicators, come into the picture. The innovative CT Applicators are designed to give you the most accurate application of products such as talc, soybean inoculants, or other dry products. Remember, CT Applicators for the changing times.
Closed captioning for Ag PhD is sponsored by Norwood Sales.
On your farm, you need speed and year-round effectiveness in your tillage program. The Quick Till from Norwood Sales allows you to move quickly through your fields, maximizing time and improving yield. Constructed of heavy-duty materials, the Quick Till is ideal for both spring and fall applications, from preparing a healthy seedbed early in the season to breaking up corn residue after harvest. For more information about how a Quick Till can improve fields on your farm, call Norwood Sales today.
That's all the time we have for today's show, but before we go, we want to invite you to tune into the Ag PhD radio show. You'll find us each weekday on SiriusXM Channel 147 at 2 p.m. Central.
And don't miss the next Ag PhD TV show. We'll have another Weed of the Week, Farm Basics, Iron Talk, and a whole lot more. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.
Can you increase your field's topsoil layer by reducing tillage, planting high residue crops, utilizing cover crops, and adding manure to the soil? Topsoil can be rebuilt. For more information, visit the Responsible Nutrient Management Foundation at rnmf.org.